Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the EFL Fantasy Podcast. My name is Angus.
And my name is Dan.
And we're back to review game week 12. Obviously, a big sort of game week with the number of people sort of playing away days, which included both of us. So I think the ranks have changed quite a bit this week. Obviously, some reasonable scores on away days. I mean, there are a few sort of bigger scores, but I think it was a lot of sort of, in and around 90 to 110, which showed how condensed the ranks still are in terms of the big moves. But yeah, I guess to start off with Dan, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. Luton won 2-0. So that was the main. It went downhill after that,
Yeah.
Gaffr-wise anyway. We'll get into the Gaffr, but not great.
Yeah. So normal service. We will sort of just go through how our teams did. We'll review the games and we will answer all your questions. So I'll kick us off. As mentioned, I was on away day. I scored 106, which was less than I was hoping for on the away days. We've talked before about anything over 120 is a good away days. And so it's a little bit below that, but in terms of, it's 51 for the game week. It was quite good compared to some of the previous away days weeks, or at least was sort of significantly above average for other away days weeks. So I have to take it. Plus, big jump for me from 127th to 26th off the back of it. So and my aim after it was to be in the top 50, and I'm 26th now, so I can't complain at all about that. Amos in goal, which was 12, Matson and Bree 18, Pookie 20, and then sort of weird sort of smatterings like Giles and Jones. Will get onto what happened with them, but getting me 6 and 4, Chair and Willock 6 each, as was Brownhill, Sargent with an 8, and then Morris with a 2. Obviously, I had Brady on the bench. That would have been handy if I'd started him, but I didn't think he was going to start, so I'm not too sort of disappointed by that. So yeah, 106 in total. Like I say, game week rank of 51, up to an overall rank of 26. I've still got one more boost to play as well, so watch out, I'm coming for all of you. But Dan, how did yours go?
I was on away days as well. I got 96. It was a green arrow. I think I went from about 390 odd to 153. I wanted to scrape into the top 100, but didn't manage to do that. I had Amos for 12, Bree 18, Aaron's 12, Pookie 20, and then similar to you, Angus, just 6s and 4s from Giles, Jones, Chair, Willock, Brownhill, and Muniz. We'll get into it. There's nothing wrong with that team.
Yeah.
There was nothing wrong with your team. Like on another game week, that probably gets 150. It's just circumstances. But Green Arrow, and as I keep saying to you, compared to last season, I was about 700. So I'll take it at the minute. I've used all 3 boosts, so I've got a plan double game week 14, a bit more than some other people who can just overhaul into it and play other boosts. But yeah, we'll see. I'm fairly confident with how my team is, but we'll see how it goes by Tuesday, Wednesday, midweeks.
Yeah, so it's straight back into it. Just to touch briefly on the pod team. To start off in terms of explaining why it was a bad week for us, beyond the fact we weren't on a boost, was we decided to sell Ismail Assar. So we clearly know what we're talking about. We had 63 minus 4. We had Amos for 6, Pal for 10, Bree for 9, Aaron's for 6, and Captain Pookie for 20. Otherwise, it was all sort of basically ones and twos. That one's now at 355th, but we do have 2 boosts left in that one, so potential to climb up a little bit. But yeah, the selling side, as we'll come to in the games, didn't quite go to plan. But yeah, we'll dive right into the games, which the first one we've got is West Brom 2, Swansea 3. Now, in terms of the sort of team news, big thing for West Brom was the fact that all of Rogic, Wallace, Swift, and Ian Garner were in. Thomas Asante kept his place up front, meaning Colin Grant was on the bench again. So that was obviously sort of big for them. The other thing for Swansea was Obafemi was on the bench again, although he did come on. Sorinola got an early goal after David Button made a complete mess of a corner. Jake Livermore, of all people, managed to equalise. Although wasn't that it was the later one. It was the Jeb Wallace assist, wasn't it? Yeah, it was Dean Garner's goal that was the Jeb Wallace assist, which was a good finish. And Chamded did well to score a solo goal. You then had the penalty, which I think is a bit soft, that Colin Grant won. Some would argue justice prevailed with Bender saving the penalty, and then Michael Obafemi scored the winner with an Ncham assist. So obviously, big result for Swansea. I think they have been a little bit hit and miss, but I think getting another win on the board, sort of moving up the table, it's all the sort of boxes you want to check almost. West Brom, on the other hand, what do we say about West Brom? I think is the best place to start. We talk about the talent, we talk about sort of how well they may or may not be doing, sort of aside from goal scoring, etc. But what is there to say at this point?
They're not good enough in both boxes, Angus. They've got the worst goalie in the league, and he is the worst goalie in the league.
He's taken the title off Joe Lumley.
He is. They're playing Townsend now centre back and Peters left back, and up front they've got all that talent, but they just can't score. Or when they do score, they're just easy to counter against. I look at the lineup and there's nothing wrong really, apart from maybe the centre back. I just, like you said, I don't know where they go. Maybe drop the goalie would be the thing I would do. You're still letting Grant take the penalties when he's missed 4 of his last 9. You've got Jed Wallace. You've got Swift there. Just let them take it. Gaffr-wise, Angus, are you interested with West Brom? They're still sort of ticking over.
Not really. So obviously I've got a boost to play. And in theory, the 2 best boosts left to play are either an overhaul or a midfield dynamos, which you would think would lend itself to West Brom players. Even if I were to play midfield dynamos, I'm not sure I'd go and get a West Brom player. I know they're doing pretty well at the moment, but I just don't. I don't really want them. What about you?
I don't know. I think Wallace and Swift will tick over. But then you get into the conversation, if you're spending that much and you won't captain them, are they even worth it? Especially now as we're going to come on to, if Sar's back in form, you've got Brevin and Diaz in the double, you've got Pookie, you've got Chair, you need to fit in. We want all these 6.5 defenders. something has to give up, and unless maybe the change of manager, which has to think it's getting closer and closer, you can't really go there. Although if you have them, you probably can hold them.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm not sure I'm rushing back, but I think they'll keep ticking over.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a different story, isn't it? If you've already got them, I wouldn't be worried about it. You know, if you've got Wallace, you've got a return. If you've got Diangana, you've got a return.
Maybe Dean Garner's the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort
Cheaper.
of less of a sort of budgetary commitment to have him as well, so he might be the answer to it.
But then surely Bruce is going to eventually try Asante up front and Grant from the left. Eventually, don't you think?
Is he going to be there in eventually?
That's true.
I don't know, and like Carlin Grant isn't exactly doing much to force his way into the team. Is the other thing, you know, he's come on, he's dubiously won a penalty that he's then proceeded to miss. Like, it's not right at the moment. Is the best way I can put it. And while like you say, I wouldn't necessarily be rushing to sell them if I own them, but I wouldn't be rushing to buy them if I didn't personally.
What about Swansea, Angus? Manning's now playing left wing back, and since he's gone there, he seems to be doing quite well.
Yeah, and
Uh,
of course he was on the corner that for the first goal. So
yeah.
that's another thing. Even if he's just on some of the set pieces, that's another potential sort of plus point there.
Do have Watford, Sunderland, and Burnley though next three. I'm not sure you want a
No,
defensive asset
no,
coming in. To be fair, but it's someone who'll when they get a good patch could do quite well. I think.
yeah. And I think the other thing with them is, you know, we have to talk about now because he's the starting goalkeeper. Is Bender at 4.5?
We do, yeah. Save the pen.
Yeah, he's done well since he came into the team. They've got a clean sheet in his first game in the team. He's now saved a penalty in this one. Not sure he could have done much about the goals they conceded either, so it's not sort of like you're looking at blaming him for anything or anything like that. So particularly if they, you know, if and when they have a better run, you've got a 4.5 goalkeeper there. Particularly as people are looking at potentially, you know, saving money again on the goalkeepers if you've had sort of more expensive keepers or you've got an issue. You know, that's another potential route. Attacking wise, particularly with some of those teams coming up, I wouldn't necessarily be looking there, but I'm less concerned about them than I was sort of, you know,
Yeah.
3 or 4 games ago, which I think is the biggest thing you can say for them at this point. But right now, I don't think I'd be going in. So that's basically all on that. Did you have anything else to add, or?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
So we'll move on to the main event from today. We didn't know we're recording Sunday night, so the main event from today, just Stoke 0, Watford 4. Dan, kick us off on this one.
Yeah, so I'll go with the lineups. Sterling and Laurent came in for Stoke. Watford, as expected, since Bilic is now the manager, they went to his normal formation of 4-2-3-1. No Pedro, but they did have a front four of Davis up front with Sarr and Semmer on the wings and Asprilla in the 10. And they just looked a lot better. I think this season and the last time they were in the championship before they got promoted, their squad is just set up to play 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3, and on both occasions the managers have tried to play this 3-5 at the back and it's just not worked. So I got on a goal and an assist. You've now got Ken Sema, got another goal. Um, One player that I did want to mention was Loser, who was probably their best player in the Premier League. He's been injured for the first couple of months, and he came on for a spriller at about 60 minutes, and that pass he played to the wing, I don't know it was just ridiculous. I'm not saying he's an option, but he looks like a better midfielder than what they have. Yeah, Watford were really good. That being said, Stoke were bad, and I still, I still do not know what this Stoke side is like. They're trying to play five at the back, and Sterling is a wing back,
but he's a right wing back, not a left
he's a
wing
right
back.
wing back, and Tariq Fosu he's a winger, and they're asking him to play wing back,
Yeah,
and
and he's
they've
getting
got the
caught out
three.
defensively as a result.
Yeah, they've got the three centre backs who can't turn or run. It's so any pace they're struggling with. And up front, that Liam Delap just looks like he wants to kick people all the time. He's not going to be at Man City for very long. And Dwight Gale, I think they just signed him for his long throw. They're not quick up front, so they can't hit teams on the counter. There's not really any creativity in midfield without Powell. I think they're just an average championship side. Definitely no assets at the minute. I don't know what you thought of this game. Obviously, Watford were good going forward, but
I'll
I'm
start with
not sure.
Stoke because that's the easiest
Yeah,
part. I felt a little bit sorry for Will Smallbone. Will Smallbone looked like the one player actually trying to make things happen, who might actually be capable of making things happen, but there was so little around him that I was sort of like, what's he supposed to do? Like I said, Fosu I thought was poor, but he is being asked to do something that isn't his sort of natural position. Sterling did fine at left wing back, but you're asking a right wing back to go and play left wing back. It's going to be an issue for him. I think you said at one point during the game, Aidan Flint is not a championship centre back.
it's not.
I was expressing my skepticism at the start of the season. I was saying to you, I've been wrong about some things that I said at the start of the season. I'm glad. I don't like to see the demise of anyone, but it's nice every so often to be right about something. And I think people sort of remember the period last year where he scored a flurry of goals, and that sort of created a rose-tinted view of him, where he's a problem. Like, he couldn't even keep his spot over an increasingly dodgy-looking Sean Morrison regularly for Cardiff, let alone sort of. And then it's like, oh yeah, he's supposed to go and help things at Stoke. He really hasn't.
But he could work as the centre of the three if the other two had pace. But you got Morgan Fox, and we know Jamie doesn't rate him at all. And he's now suddenly become the main centre back.
Yeah.
And Wilmot, I think Wilmot's good enough to be fair.
He was trying his best. Bless him. Ben Wilmot was trying his best. What was it? The Ken Sema goal. He actually got back and put in a really good block, and
yeah, he did.
Ken Sema was just still able to finish on the ground. But yeah, I really don't want to talk about Stoke anymore. They're bad. Baker is fine because he'll tick over with points, but I'd probably look away from him, and I'd certainly not look at anyone else. Watford, much more interesting. Like I say, 4-2-3-1 was the big thing with Bilic coming in. We did wonder, would he go straight in with his preferred formation? He did. Be interesting to see who in that team Joao Pedro comes in for, because he definitely will come in. I would assume it's a Springer.
Isn't it? Yeah, I think so.
In which case that then becomes a very good front four. I think it's tough to assess them defensively in that game because I think Stoke are so bad. But we talked before the season about Kamara as a wing back. I think he showed that even in a back four, he will be an option. And then
I think Gaspar can be got at though.
yeah, but he's a bit older. Like he's going to need a little bit more help. I think Cabaselli will need to come out of the team if they're going to play a back four as well. He'll get found out as well. So if you have Gaspar and Cabaselli on one side of the defence, that could be a problem. But everyone's here to listen to us talk about the attackers. That's what everyone's here for. So let's get into it. Ismail Assar, excellent. I think he showed what he was capable of, and I think the big thing, which I think it was Don Goodman on commentary kept highlighting, which we do know about him, is his work rate. The number of times he was the one winning the ball, wanting to get back at the defence, that sort of thing. It's difficult to say he's back in form after one good game, but he got a goal and an assist, playing in probably a more helpful system. I think it could be good for him, and I think people will probably be looking to get on him quite quickly. Ken Sema, I think. Oh, go on.
What I was going to say on Sarr was what I thought was good is he's playing on the wing, and we know from previous seasons he just loves to hog that line. But he, on numerous occasions, he was actually getting in.
Yeah.
Like the first goal, he was actually supporting it in the middle of the goal, which means he's going to get more chances to score. Especially we know Davis likes to link the play and drop deeper, so it is important. So yeah, I thought he played very well.
Yeah, Ken Sema. I think he's done decently so far this season, but someone asked the question in our sort of group chat earlier, and I think there is this thing about when a midfielder is playing wing back in your mind, it's sort of it doesn't feel like as good a pick. Where obviously now he's going to be playing much higher, and I think that sort of helps him because, like I said, I think he's a good player, particularly at this level. I'm not sure how capable he is of playing at the next level up, but I think he's a good player at this level, and I think he's at a good price point. I think he's 7.1.
Yes, yeah, that's a good price, isn't it?
So
that's
I think
around cheaper than Willock and that.
Yeah, so I think he's, you look at it, if Watford are going to play anything like this regularly, an attacker in their team at 7.1, the same sort of thing we were talking about with Diangana with West Brom. I know they haven't been as good in terms of output, but that potential saving as well, or the combination, the fact that it makes it slightly easier to potentially go into double attack with one of them being that step cheaper. Davis, I thought, played well. Asprilla had moments, but I think he's also a little bit he got a bit frustrated.
I think he's 18, 19.
Yeah, he's a young player. He was getting a bit sort of frustrated. There's clearly talent there, but like we've said, I think he'll be the one who comes out of the team for Pedro anyway. Davis, I think, is potentially a decent pick, but I'd probably be looking at the two midfielders and probably Pedro when he's fit ahead of him anyway, and Kamara.
I just wonder at 9.6 if Pedro is going to be value when you consider if he's only playing in the 10. Now, if he's running past Davis, that's a different thing. But you've got Pukki, Brereton Diaz, you then got a couple of the other punty players, Bristol City, Morris, maybe Victor. I just wonder, is he a bit too much if you're trying to maybe get in Sarr and one of those expensive strikers as well?
Yeah, I think that will be interesting to see how it looks when he gets in the team as well, because I think he has the capable to be more of an attacking threat from that 10 position, but until we see how it works with them all available, he would be the one that I'd sort of be more wait and see, where not literally go and buy them now, but if someone decided immediately they wanted to buy Sarr or Sema, I wouldn't talk anyone out of that.
No.
But move on to our next game. which is Bristol City 1, QPR 2. So obviously there's been a lot of conversation about the Bristol City forwards. And coming into this game, the only change was Joe Williams coming into the midfield. And it was still, in terms of the important thing, it was Vyman behind Conway and Wells again for them. For QPR, you had sort of the attack, I guess, was the main thing in terms of looking at it, of Roberts, Chair and Willock, despite Dykes going away and getting a couple of goals with Scotland. Beale stuck with that. The other notable thing, I guess, is that it's Balogun and Clark Salter at centre back. Clark Salter, I think, came in for Dunn. Dickey is still out injured, so Balogun was always likely to continue.
I'm not a fan of Dickey in a 2 anyway. Yeah. You know that.
I think they got 2 goals in quick succession in the first half. There was Stefan Johansson popping up with a goal, a Willock effort that was diverted onto the post, and then Johansson scores the rebound. So because of the scoring in Gaffr, nothing for Willock. And then the second, Tyler Roberts, sort of stretching very much to get on the end of it, from a Kenneth Powell delivery. So I think that was quite a good one for anyone who was on Powell. I think he had a 10-pointer. But yeah, a little bit frustrating in terms of the Chair and Willock elements of it. 2 goals, and they're neither of them have any return involved in them. And then obviously Bristol City did get the 1 goal back through Nahki Wells. But I think that there's 2 sort of talking points here. I think there's the fact that Chair and Willock haven't returned, although both of them, by the sounds of it, were significantly involved. They just didn't come away with returns, and I don't think there's any panic around them. I don't think there should be any desperation to get rid of them, particularly those on Chair. I think he's one that, he's been doing very well this season. I'm not sure there's any rush to get rid. And then the Bristol City side, particularly looking ahead to 14, the forwards. The other thing that should be noted again, Semenyo came on for Conway at half-time for the second game in a row. So for people who are looking at Conway, at the moment, you're looking at he has to return in the first half or he's not getting you anything.
Yeah.
So the game before the break, he got an assist in the first half and then got taken off. This game he hasn't. You have to assume in that case that we're heading towards Semenyo coming back into the lineup if he's come on at half time in the last 2.
Yeah.
So I do think that's sort of potentially significant. So for those looking at the forwards, I think at the moment, Nahki Wells is probably the first choice.
And then would you go Vyman second, just for his minutes?
Yeah. Vyman's the second choice because he'll play. He's almost the one you can absolutely guarantee will play. Because would it totally shock me if Semenyo actually came in for Wells? No, I'd be surprised if it was Wells over Conway. But I can see a world in where they do that and whatever. Vyman seems like he's going to play every game.
Yeah, and then when you get to that double game week, they're going to share minutes, aren't they? All 3 of them probably.
Yeah, and that's the thing where I'd have Wells as the first choice because essentially he's actually getting the goals. So that obviously gives that's what you're looking for from your forward. So he'd be the first choice, and then Vyman, it's just it's easier to get points if you're reliably on the pitch. So that's where he'd slot in. That's why he'd slot in ahead of Conway and Semenyo for me. If one of those 2 looks like getting a more nailed spot going forward, then I still like both of them. But at the moment, when they're getting 45 minutes apiece, it's tough to recommend either of them.
Yeah, but we do still have 1 more game week before 14.
Yeah.
So you've still got time.
Yeah, I'd be looking at what happens with that, particularly around that Conway-Semenyo spot, because I assume, particularly given that he scored again, that Nahki Wells will probably stay in the team. So looking at who that other attacker is something to keep an eye on for people, I think. Anything else to add on either of these teams?
No, not really. Just Chair and Willock, you're unlucky because if either get a return, they probably get top bonus
Yeah.
as well. That's
But they both ended up in the bonus, so
yeah. Nah, nothing
no,
really. Like I said, would you go Bristol City defence, Angus?
probably not.
I wouldn't either.
No, probably not. Next game we've got is Reading 3, Huddersfield 1. So Dan, talk to us about this one.
Yeah. So Andy Carroll started with his number 2 shirt on. He came in up front. Oh, I don't like it either, but it's staying, Angus.
Yeah, I know.
He started up front. He then had Huddersfield with Fodringham, obviously the new manager, first timers getting the job as a manager anyway. He played 4-2-3-1. Russell and Sorba Thomas came in for Kamara and Angerin, who I think Angerin is injured. And it's just Ince again with another return. McIntyre with the goal. We then had 2 calamitous goals from Huddersfield's point of view. The first one, the ball was played across and Helic clears it onto Nichols' back of his head and it goes in. And then I have no idea what happened
I was
in the
about to
last
say, somehow
goal.
it's not the funniest goal that
No, it's
Huddersfield
not.
conceded.
Somehow Moiti ends up. I don't even know how to describe it. He basically scores when Nichols had another nightmare. They did get a goal back through Lees from a Sorba Thomas assist, but yeah, it's another win at home for Reading. Ince again. He's now got 2 goals and 2 assists. He's very good for bonus. We've mentioned it a few times. I think he's probably the only one I would look at. But again, they've got Norwich next week, QPR, West Brom, Swansea. I'm not sure if I'm rushing to them, but he's in that price range where he's a good price, 6 million. And if he's like your 4th choice midfielder, you can bench him or play him. It's not terrible. Huddersfield, I don't want to say too much because we play them on Tuesday, but they didn't play great. And it'll be interesting to see if he can get this style in quickly. But yeah, they're a massive wait and see and probably a target still at the minute. I don't know if I haven't got too much to say about this game really.
No, the other thing that I say is apparently Nesta Guinness-Walker did a decent job filling in at left wing back, and it looks like I think I saw he might be. Well, someone might have to play there for a little bit because I think Bauer Rahman is out for a few weeks at least. So I'm not saying go and buy a Reading defender by any means, but if you're sort of really needing to stretch the budget to players that are playing, that's a potential 4.5 starter, which even 4.5 starters are becoming less common. So just something to keep an eye on. But I wouldn't be advocating for much from Reading other than Tom Ince. And yeah, Huddersfield, it's not a fixture that concerns me at all at the moment in terms of having players against them. We'll see how it goes after the managerial change with getting the new head coach in and everything. But for right now, not much to sort of say on them or advocate for or anything along those lines. So we'll move on to our next game, and this is what everyone's been waiting for, particularly as I am kicking us off on it. It is Coventry 1, Middlesbrough 0. Everyone who was on their away days had at least one of Isaiah Jones and Ryan Giles. Quite a few of us had both of Isaiah Jones and Ryan Giles. For some reason, Chris Wilder decided to bench Isaiah Jones and Ryan Giles. And in my personal opinion, he got exactly what he deserved when Victor Gyökeres put Coventry 1-0 up. It stayed 1-0. It's difficult. It was just a long ball over the top. It's difficult to tell which one of Dale Fry and Anthony Dijksteel is to blame there, because the player got very had slid quite a long way over to the left-hand side. I initially thought that it must have been the fault of the left-hand side of the defence, but if you look at the way it's sort of gone over there, it's either Fry or Dijksteel who's sort of not tracked Gyökeres' run. I'm not sure which one of them was supposed to. Dijksteel's the only one who actually had the pace to get back to him. Fry was sort of like done for as soon as someone's in behind him. But the problem with them, and we've talked about it, is they do the fundamentals well for 95% of the game. But almost every single game, they'll have at least one or two of these moments where it just completely falls apart. Like they don't sort of give up, sort of decent openings. No, when they give up an opening, it's sort of a spectacular opening.
And that's the problem, Angus. If they're giving away two of those chances, especially if you concede the first goal, that means they've got to go more attacking, and they get hit on the counter again. Carry on, Angus.
Yeah, I was about to say, I've got a lot more to say. I think the biggest thing to point out, and I've sort of defended you, and you've been, even before the game, when the lineups were dropped, and you said, he doesn't know what he's doing, he's all over the place, he's panicking or whatever. The more I thought about it, I was thinking about it, and if you were trying to pinpoint Middlesbrough's best, most dynamic or most productive players this season, you wouldn't get too far. It might not be literally your first three, but you wouldn't get too far before you had listed Isaiah Jones, Ryan Giles, and Riley McGree. All jokes aside about my love for Riley McGree, he's obviously been in good form for them. He's their joint top scorer, and he's been playing well recently. And those are the three you leave out. He basically decides everyone else, yeah, fine, keep them in the team. Those three are the ones you leave out? I don't get it. And now your wing backs are Tommy Smith and Mark Bowler. I just don't get it. You're like, oh yeah, we need more Duncan Watmore. Alex Mowat came back into the team after probably correctly being left out in the previous game. I don't know what he's doing. And yeah, a lot of this is probably my reaction to I was on away days with Jones and Giles and he benched both of them. But, he's then brought, I don't know why he's leaving them out. I don't know what he's leaving them out for. I saw a few people suggesting it was a rest. Well, it's off the back of an international break where I'm not sure either of them went away. So what exactly is he, giving them a rest from? I know they're about to go into a 3-game week, but, they've done that before. Leaving them out of the first game back from the international break doesn't really make sense. Jones managed to still get booked, even though he only played 35 minutes. Well, I guess including injury time, I think it was 40 minutes. But he played 40 minutes. He still managed to get booked. I think he managed to get booked within about 10 minutes of coming on. So that's his suspension now. The one we were worried about would keep him out of away days. He's then got anyway, after not starting. It's great.
He got his 2 points though. 3 points.
It's the most eventful 2-point sort of blank imaginable, or the most dramatic, sort of 2 points. yeah, that like I still don't think like you look at a lot of the data underneath it, particularly with the defensive side of the ball, and it still looks fine for them. It still looks pretty good. But if he's going to keep chopping and changing the team, making these decisions, you know, there's there's more and more managerial openings coming up that he's being asked about as well. Let alone whether his job should be secure, which I think it probably still should be, but he's now getting asked about more and more managerial jobs elsewhere. It's not a great moment at the moment, but I'll let you speak because I've got a lot off my chest there, and I'll let you speak about this.
Well, I think you said everything on Middlesbrough. I'll talk about Coventry and Luton have obviously played Coventry, and Victor absolutely ran us ragged. He's the best striker I've seen in the league this year, um, and he's deceivingly quick as well. I think he's got 3 goals now. He's definitely someone that should be on your watch list for when they have a nice period. They're going to have all these doubles. And they didn't have O'Hare or Hamer in this team either, and they still beat Borough. The main question is, Angus, do you keep double defence?
I've been pondering this question since yesterday afternoon. I'm not sure I have a good answer yet. I mean, if you're wanting, particularly if you're on double defence, if you're wanting to come off, the fact that Jones is suspended of this upcoming game week is probably a good excuse to jump off.
Yeah, and he's 0.5 more than Giles as well.
I thought they were about as nailed could be.
Yeah.
So it's not like, I suddenly think they've lost their place, but it's just sort of like, what is going on with this team almost. I wouldn't necessarily be feeling, I have to jump off if I was on the double. But I think if you're wavering at all, this is a decent time to do so.
I just think they're probably defensively about mid-table in the league, and as you've mentioned, but they give up big chances, and that being said, though, is they're still top 10, both of them, and you think Jones has got 5 yellow cards as well, so that takes away bonus points for getting booked, plus probably bonus as well. It's not a straightforward issue.
And I mean, they play Birmingham this midweek. Obviously, Jones can't play that. They then play Millwall, Blackburn, Wigan, which isn't exactly the worst set of opponents. It's not the best set of opponents, but it's not exactly the worst set of opponents either.
And I mentioned last game week about trying to keep a solid defence, so I'm not making transfers. Obviously, if you want to, if injuries and things like that, that's something different. But I wanted to be more aggressive with the strikers and the midfield as well. Giles and Jones will probably end up 200 points this season. You throw in Bree, Aarons, Brady, maybe the Watford guys, Sheffield United.
I think that's the thing. Is those other guys you mentioned about whether you go to, like, let's assume the people who have the double up also have Bree, probably have Brady,
Aarons, maybe.
Aarons or Roberts or Matson is probably your other one that you have. If you don't have one of those other ones, you're probably looking at them at this point. There's also Sheffield United defenders.
Bogle back on the bench.
Yeah.
We'll get to that, obviously.
Yeah. People I've seen looking now. I know that it's another one we'll talk about. I've been looking at Bell. Mentioned Powell getting an assist for QPR. He's been doing quite well.
A lot cheaper, Powell as well.
So it's just with a number of these options being available as well, and putting their hands up, and it does sort of create that opening, and that's where I think you're not necessarily going to look to sell them, which is part of what I mentioned with Jones being suspended this week. It's that sort of thing that might sort of just get you to make that move where you could talk yourself out of it every week looking at the game they have or what they could do. Whereas in a week where you know he won't play, that's where you might be able to sort of, reason with it mentally almost. But so I wouldn't be desperate to do it, but there are options around.
Also, you got the double coming up as well. Yeah.
But yeah, we'll move on because otherwise I could,
We'll talk about that game all week.
Yeah, exactly.
All week, all game.
All day. It might be a week.
It might be, yeah. I'm not salty about it one bit at all.
Yeah, exactly. But we'll move on to our next game, which is Hull 0, Luton 2. So Dan, talk to us about this one.
Yeah, so probably the biggest news was Shota got sacked about 8 hours before the game. I've had 2 weeks.
I'd almost forgotten about that. I've been so busy ranting about Middlesbrough.
It was like, because I can't remember the owner's name, but he's known as the Simon Cowell of Turkey.
Yeah.
And it was like he knew he was going to be on TV. Well, let's make more news.
With his arm in a sling.
Yeah. Well, he was in a crash, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Let's make more news. We'll sack him 8 hours before. The worrying thing, Angus, was the conversation he gave to the Sky reporter.
I didn't even notice. I tuned in like at kickoff, so I didn't see it.
He said, "I'd rather win games 4-3," and I'm thinking,
well, the way they've been playing, that's the only way they were going to win games.
Yeah, but they're not good enough, Angus. But I'll get into the lineup. We'll talk about that more. Figueiredo, Seri, and Vale were dropped to the bench or missed out. Jones, Woods, and Longman came in. They played 4 at the back. Luton made one change. Adebayo came in for Woodrow, who got injured in training. Good news, maybe not as an asset, but more of the balance of the team was Pelly Ruddock was back on the bench, who's been out for 5 months. Just gives us good balance in centre mid when he's fit. This game was just comfortable, really. I think we were gear 2 in the first half, probably. Scored a good worked corner. Adebayo's luck hitting the bar, and then it just hits their defender and goes in. Annoyingly, the person who was there who would have tapped it in was Morris, who was both on our away days. Morris then had another 2 chances. One, we nearly got the dream scenario with Bree. We pulled it back to him and just over the top, and then a great save by Baxter. I will mention before this, Hull probably had their best chance, which was from about 20 yards, where Potts obviously flicked it, and I think it caused Horvath a bit more trouble because I think he'd have saved it comfortably anyway, but that hit the bar. And then probably what everyone's talking about is the Henry Lansbury goal. He's not scored. Was it 2018? It was his first goal for Luton, and great technique. But it's his celebration. He's managed to plug the company he owns.
Yeah, the
lawnmower company. And second half, it was Luton were basically in neutral the whole game, just seeing it out comfortably. Hull didn't really do anything. Probably the most annoying thing is Morris is now on 4 yellow cards.
Well. I think the most annoying thing was that he had a very good shout for a penalty, which he then got booked for complaining about.
No, I don't know who would have taken the penalty.
No, I mean that we've sort of discussed with Adebayo taken it, sort of trying to get him a goal and everything. But
He's not got a great record either.
no,
As
but
pen, so.
I mean, it's worth saying. I sort of rant about that, and I genuinely think it was a penalty. I know there was a bit of a debate about it, but my ownership of him on away days aside, I think that's a penalty. Greaves has sort of pulled him over. You can see from the reverse angle, he's like stretching Morris's shirt away from his body as he pulls him. It's pretty blatant. And there's no reason for Morris to go down there. That's the other thing. But the other thing for me was, in the interest of fairness, there was a corner after that for Hull where about two different things could have been a penalty. So, just in the interest of fairness, it's worth mentioning. But, particularly the big thing for me with the Luton forwards as well was you had Morris booked for complaining about not getting a penalty, and Adebayo booked for punching the ball away. Like,
he's just frustrated, Adebayo, because I thought he looked better second half holding the ball up, but he's just a bit rusty. But then I think what is the interesting thing is a lot of our team haven't even played this season or aren't on form. So Adebayo, Cornick's not really played, Woodrow's hardly played, Peddy's coming back, Bradley's not played, Onyedinma. So it's looking good, I think, going forward.
Yeah. On Hull, the other thing to say, Estupiñán off after 59 minutes. Basically did nothing all game. And I can't really blame him because a lot of it just seemed to be the team did nothing in terms of getting him the ball. Like he was just sort of, there up front. He was just sort of there. You're just sort of there for a bit of a run around for 59 minutes.
And then he had Lockyer just kicking him all game.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
He just sort of had a bit of a run around. The really interesting thing, though, was they took him off and put Tufan up front.
I think that was just they were so open.
Well,
and Tufan doesn't run.
Estupiñán at the moment is the only striker they've got. That's the other problem.
Out. Yeah, Bale's out.
So they had the choice of do you basically just take one of your wide players and stick them up front, or as they did, you end up just putting someone like Tufan up front. But I wouldn't necessarily be reading too much into that if you are one of the people who does own Tufan. But
just stay away from Hull at the minute. I think that we mentioned in the summer quickly that their decision to let Honeyman go, such a bad decision. That's exactly the player they need. It's so bad.
A lot of interesting things are. If you've got Estupiñán, it's probably worth selling at this point. On the Luton side, Bree,
just play him every game.
Yeah, does the business again. Gets the probably bonus the best despite being booked.
He's probably the best defender in the game, to be honest.
Bell, I think, is an interesting one because we speculated about whether he was going to come out of the team after returning quite late from international duty. He was straight in the team, played 90 minutes. I think did quite well on that side as well, but he's got the competition now. That's the thing.
Yeah, Fred's back, Doughty's back. Could be the odd game he gets dropped as well.
I've got Carlton Morris. Obviously, he's blanked in this one. I'm not selling him yet, particularly as you've got Huddersfield next. So I'm not selling a forward ahead of playing Huddersfield. But in terms, particularly longer term, I guess Bree is the main one, and then if you want to go on to Morris,
I think
that's fine. But Bree's probably still the main one to look at.
Yeah.
We'll move on to the next game, which was Rotherham 0, Wigan 2. The other very popular purchase this week, Will Keane getting a goal. Commiserations to the people who were debating Keane or Morris, or something along those lines. I think that that sort of thing I saw in quite a few places, or it was Keane or someone. Keane or Muniz, Keane or Morris, that sort of thing. And then I think it was Naylor with the other goal after Watmore headed the ball back across the box. I've forgotten now. Very briefly, it was Charlie White who got the assist for the Will Keane goal. The interesting thing there was no Callum Lang in the squad at all. Aside from that, you more or less know at this point what we're going to picking. McLean continued at left back again with Broadhead, and White came in for Lang and McGuinness, and it was Keane and Asgard were still the other two behind the striker. On the Rotherham side, obviously Lee Peltier and Richard Wood managing the team. Peltier was the one in the dugout. They dropped him. They left him out. So he was sort of managing from the sidelines. Not the best game for them. I thought it was a relatively even game from everything I saw. Wigan just got a couple of goals. I thought Rotherham had a few decent chances as well, but couldn't get on the scoreline. Not particularly worried about either team at this point.
I don't know. I'm worried about Rotherham.
I'm a little bit worried about Rotherham in terms of what happens now. They've been turned down by one or two managers. It's become quite public that Matt Taylor, the Exeter City manager, has been offered the job, and he's going to decide whether he's going to take the job, which I think would be a bit of a concern as if you're Rotherham in the Championship, particularly in the top half at the moment, and the Exeter City manager is having to take some time to think about whether he's going to take the job at your club.
I think what it is his stock's rising.
Yeah.
Can he hold out for a bigger side than Rotherham?
Yeah.
It's the same with Bonner from Cambridge.
Yeah, I mean, we don't sort of mean it as like a real sort of disparaging of Rotherham, but it's not a big club. Like when we're talking about Paul Warne going to Derby, he's moving to a bigger club. Yes, he's going down to League One, but he's moving to a bigger club. And so there is that sort of calculation for a lot of managers at this point. People on Rotherham assets, I guess the main ones, I mean, there are some people on Wood, but I feel like the main ones that people are looking at or who would own Johansson and Ogbene.
I think they're fine.
I think they're absolutely fine. No problem with that. On the Wigan side, obviously, we should talk about them because they've got the double coming up in 14. Amos, I'm perfectly happy with Amos at this point. As long as he doesn't have back spasms again, I think
it's all right. I've got the backup Angus as well now.
Yeah. I suppose if you're on Amos and Jones, then you're all right. Defensively, I'd go Watmore.
I wouldn't go either. I don't think.
But if you're looking for a defender, I'd go him. That is, if you're going to a defender, he's the one you can guarantee will play. Right back, you can't guarantee which one of Nyambe or Derek was going to play. Tilt, you can't guarantee is going to play. McLean's been playing left back, who's not a defender, obviously. So, if you were going defensively with them, I'd go with him or no one. Midfield wise, even with playing left back, I think McLean is still an option. I think he had a couple of chances in this game, despite the fact he was playing left back as well. In theory, I like Asgard, although he's been quite quiet. He's starting, but he's not necessarily getting points.
60 minutes. He's only done one thing, and that was scored a worldie against Luton.
And then there's sort of, Will Keane that everyone's talking about.
I like Keane as an option. I would put Brereton Diaz and a Bristol City above him, but if you want to punt on 3 up front and maybe remove Pookie, I think Will Keane's the next best.
Yeah. I think he's a perfectly good option. He's a little bit underwhelming for me, but that's again where some of these guys then come in ahead of him. But he does have a double. He is on penalties.
Yeah. If only someone had put him in midfield.
Him and Callum Lang.
Yeah.
But But yeah, we'll move on. Next game we've got is Cardiff 1, Burnley 1. So obviously this was an interesting one for. I mean, it was an interesting one from the selection, particularly on away days. Cardiff, it was interesting. It looked almost like they picked a 4-4-2 in this one. Although that might have just been a couple of the lineup things I saw getting it wrong.
Yeah, I did see that as well.
But
they have been playing O'Dowd as a wing back sometimes.
Is a left back, so that sort of lended credibility to that idea. But Callum Robinson late on with the goal for them. Burnley, the big almost relief for me, having made the move on away days, or 4 away days, was that Maatsen did start. And then the one sort of spot that seems to be remotely open at this point is who starts in the attack with Teller and Rodriguez. In this case, it was Goodmanson. Maatsen obviously got the assist for Teller's goal. With the very late clean sheet wipeout being annoying because Maatsen was on for a haul. With Robinson getting a good header, although I couldn't work out whether it was just me. It looked like Muric almost pulled out of trying to save it.
I was more concerned about the defending by Harwood Bellis, but we won't go into. I'm not convinced he's that great, but
yeah, I think it'd be frustrating for them. It's more points dropped. They're still in 4th place, but they have had a nasty habit of dropping points. That's their 6th draw in 11 games. A number of those from winning positions. So that's sort of the thing that I think will be really bothering Vincent Kompany.
I think it's 3 draws of the last 4, and I think they've probably taken the lead in most of them as well. I think.
In terms of Gaffr assets from Cardiff, I guess I mean, Romeo got the assist, and I think he's fine. He's been doing well in the bonus, but I wouldn't be rushing to get him. Callum Robinson's the main one, but he's still quite expensive, but he's playing up front. So if Cardiff come into a good run at any point, he might be worth looking at, but I wouldn't be going there now. Burnley, they're fine.
There's loads from Burnley.
I looked at Harwood Bellis because he's going to play, and he's had a couple of returns, but he's going to play. Roberts, I'd probably go to Maatsen personally, but Roberts is going to play. Maatsen probably has the higher upside, but you have to tolerate that there will be some games that he won't start. Brownhill picked up some bonus again, and he'll tick over quite nicely. Teller, Rodriguez.
Teller 4 goals.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, at the moment the 3 sort of preferred ones for me would be Maatsen, Teller, and Brownhill. And Brownhill, it's partially just about the price and that he does have some of the set pieces and everything. So, but the main two I'd be looking at are Teller and Maatsen.
It's oh really?
Yeah.
So you don't like J-Rod? Is it because he's not explosive? Because he seems to be playing.
I'd be chasing slightly more upside with my forwards. And even with that, looking at the upside of Teller and Maatsen, I think there's just more upside there. And then if you're looking for a slightly more solid Burnley option, which is where I sort of see Rodriguez, if you're wanting the solid one to tick over, I'd just go to Brownhill instead. I'd be aiming for a bit more upside with my forwards. I don't think there's going to be many games where Rodriguez is hitting 2s and 3s. That's the main problem for me. I can't envisage that happening a lot. So I might be wrong, but that's just where my personal sort of issue with him is. And it's not that I think he's a bad pick. It's just those ones I'd prefer over him. But move on from them. The next game we've got is Blackburn 2, Millwall 1. I think you're leading us off on this one. I've completely lost track of what we're doing.
It don't matter. We'll just talk about it. We'll just discuss it. I'll lead off. Blackburn 1-2-1. Gallagher started. It looked like Hedges was sort of playing right wing back in this formation. Millwall were unchanged. Big news, Long was still in goal, which is massive. Although Millwall have conceded 2 goals in every away game. We got goals from Dolan and Brereton Diaz, Millwall, Cooper. The main talking point is Brereton Diaz on the double. I think you have to have him.
Probably. I think
not.
You're taking a big chance if you don't have him.
Even though they're not, like, data-wise, they're not great going forwards, but he's an above average finisher, I'd say.
Yeah.
He's not a championship player. He should be in the Premier League or a top league somewhere. I'm worried about Millwall.
Yeah.
Because their data for the last few seasons hasn't been good. It's only because Barkowski was saving a lot of shots, and 2 goals away every match away from home. I think I'd avoid Millwall at the minute, especially because the players who you think you want, they're expensive and they're in that bracket with the premium defenders. We say it every week, Angus. Anyone apart from Brereton Diaz on the double? Pickering, Hedges?
The Hedges at right wing back thing concerns me a little bit. Although I wasn't necessarily completely sold on him as an option, but him at right wing back concerns me.
What about Dolan? Because
Dolan is probably the one, particularly talking about looking for guys with a bit more upside. Dolan is one that would be more tempting to me. He seems to be starting the majority of the games as well, so he'd be the more interesting one. I think if I were looking at Blackburn for the double, though, it would probably just be Brereton Diaz and maybe Pickering.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd be looking further than that. The other thing it's worth saying, even with Hedges playing that right wing back position, is Callum Britton was back on the bench. So
he's on the bench against Luton before the international break as well.
But it sounded from a couple of the comments like he might not have actually been available for that game. It was sort of like they'd put him on the bench, but he didn't have anything more than about 15 minutes in him. Where obviously he was unused sub, but he was available. Carter available as well. He did come off the bench for Hedges, so that would concern me a little bit, which is why I'd probably just look at Pickering or Brereton Diaz personally. Millwall, like you say, it's just an avoid. Malone did start, but even that didn't really, give you anything. And as someone who picked Millwall to finish in the playoffs in my preseason predictions, I talked about being right before about Aidan Flynn. I'm willing to accept that I was wrong on that one already. So, that it's not great for them. And like you say, particularly some of the ones you would want are more expensive. So, I agree. I think they're an avoid at the moment. We'll move on. We've got Sheffield United 1, Birmingham 1. Ollie McBurney in the goals again. I'm still not going to recommend him at all as a pick, but, in terms of, the great Gaffr assets this game, the goals from Ollie McBurney and Troy Deeney. Especially for sort of Sheffield United to lose, to concede a goal at home, given how few they concede, and it was Troy Deeney unmarked in the middle of the penalty area. You don't see that very often as well, how wide open he was, but
he ghosted in.
But yeah, I guess the big thing, aside from Ollie McBurney getting the goal, which is obviously notable, was 30 minutes for Jayden Bogle.
Yeah, that's big news.
So I think that's one to watch. We'll see if we get anything more from Heckingbottom on Ahmed Hodzic, because he seemed a bit more bullish on the potential injury timeline with him. I wonder whether it's just because he was annoyed at the Bosnian FA putting a time frame on it out there, and he is actually out for that length of time, but he just was annoyed by it. We'll see whether that's the case, but I still think defensively they're good picks. I'd probably look at. I mean, I've said Norrington Davis. He's probably one I'd still look at. Maybe someone like John Egan, because he'll play. Again, it's that sort of reliability. If you're wanting to benefit from their defence, someone like John Egan, as he showed over the international break as well, he might pop up with the odd goal. So there's that. But what are your thoughts on the assets from these two teams?
Sheffield United is pretty much as I've been for a while. I like Ndai. Berger, I think, is doing all right, but it's just he's playing deeper. But I know he didn't return. Did he return this week? But he keeps returning.
He got bonus. He got 2 bonus.
Yeah. Those are the main two. I am interested to see what happens when Bogle's back fully fit. And Asmatovic is the other one, but he's out injured. I did want to mention with Birmingham, since Bielik has come into the side, they haven't lost, which I found interesting. I think that coincides with Chan coming in as well. So a bit more creativity and probably a bit more balance.
Yeah.
Because they were playing 2 youngsters in there, weren't there? It just wasn't working.
So I think that would be big for them. I'm not ready to sort of go there in terms of assets at the moment.
No.
It's something where it's something, I guess, to keep an eye on with them, and they might be viable at a certain point.
Well, it might not be a team that you really look to target against, like captaincy wise.
Yeah.
You think they are when maybe they're not.
But yeah, we'll move on. We've got Blackpool 0, Norwich 1. Timu Puki gets the goal. Lots of captainers this week, I think. Lots with him on away days. It's another goal. He seems to be sort of running really well. And to be honest, Norwich could have had any number in this game. In terms of the chances they did have, the number of times they went close. They did give up quite a few shots, which was interesting, because Blackpool did sort of counterpunch a bit. But you had Josh Sargent. Annoyingly for me, had one cleared off the line. They hit the woodwork, I think, 2 or 3 times. So yeah, I think that they're still, we've talked about them being viable. Don't think much has really changed there, has it?
No, just Pookie, 4 goals, 3 assists in 5 games.
Yeah,
best asset in the game now, I think. And I just want to mention that Grimshaw was dropped for Blackpool for Maxwell. Not sure if anyone's on him, but it's always interesting to know which goal he's playing, especially if we get Jeepers Keepers or anything like that. I think that's it. We know Norwich.
Yeah.
We don't need to.
And people know who they're looking at from them as well.
Yeah.
And the last game we've got Sunderland 0, Preston 0. I had 2 notes on this. 1, Fernandez and Brady both started. And 2, the ITV highlights show put this on 6th in the running order, despite it being a 0-0 draw, ahead of things like West Brom Swansea.
Which was near enough last, apart from the Friday night game.
So
I don't understand how they do that. It's like they pick it out of a hat.
Yeah, those were literally my notes. Both Fernandez and Brady started, and I couldn't believe where it was on the running order of the highlights show.
That is interesting though, because we were worried Fernandez might take Brady's
Yeah, and obviously he
spot. And if
did
he
start the
takes
game before
Potts,
the break, but
yeah,
the fact they both played.
I wonder if this is the manager just saying, "Well, you were booing him, so I'm going to get my way and play Brady, but you you can get your way as well."
I think he genuinely wanted to get Fernandes into the team, but I think he wants to play Brady. I mean, I when I was trying to work out who to buy on away days, I almost just started Brady when I saw Lowe talking about how he'd gone to Ireland to watch him, and like he'd sat in the crowd and you know all of this, and I was like, oh God, he's going to play him, isn't he? But I was still sort of thinking, oh, I don't think he starts or whatever. So, but yeah, I think it will be interesting if he's going to start both of them more often going forward. I do think that is something to note, but I don't have anything else to add on that.
No. And Sunderland, they didn't have any
No.
strikers, so they're still playing wingers up front.
Um, I think they
Yeah,
had
if you've
some
got
decent chances, but
if you've got Clark, that's fine with their
yeah,
run so cheap. Don't worry about that.
yeah. So we'll move on to the questions. We've had a number of questions, so but we've gone quite long. But there were quite a few things to discuss, so that's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. Um, we'll try and sort of rattle through these as quickly as possible, genuinely, because we have been going for an hour and a quarter now.
A lot of them we've probably mentioned
Yeah.
anyway throughout the podcast.
Rob Pick, he's asked us, both players play every game from now to the end of the season. You can only own one of them, Sarr or Pookie. He says he's putting his faith in me here. I'm guessing you're on the record as saying Pookie.
It's Pookie. How can you doubt that?
I really like Sarr, and I think he
Oh,
could
I'm not
do
saying.
really well in that team. I think he could do really well. I'm going to say Pookie in part because I like his value over the other strikers versus Sarr's value over the other midfielders.
Good
So it's a
answer.
cop out, but I think it shows Pookie's extra value to me.
Yeah, it's just the captaincy.
Yeah,
You he's getting back to you can trust captaining him
yeah.
again.
I mean, it helps that you're saying that you're giving me that Sarr plays every game because that's been one of the major issues in the hypothetical. But yeah, I think it's close, but I'd say Pookie just because of the value over the other forwards. I'm not sure how many other forwards I want, whereas I could probably come up with the other midfielders that I would want. So it's a total cop out answer, but that's why I'm giving it. David Strom has asked us, what's your go-to comfort food?
Ooh. What is it? Is this like in the evening? What do you have?
Yeah, sort of like you just want to have something to sort of pick you up, or um, or you're
So
sitting there in the evening in front of the TV or whatever. What's your go-to?
mine is normally like just a bag of crisps. You
Yeah.
know, like a massive one where they say sharing. I'm not sharing that.
Yeah, a sharing pack of crisps to myself.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just something like
Yeah,
that, really.
yeah, probably the same. I like sort of just having, um, like what like essentially supermarket brand like what's it, sort of cheese
Oh
puffs or
yeah.
whatever.
Oh yeah, that's what I have.
Yeah, that's what I'd
That's
sit
what,
in. That's
yeah.
what I'd sit and eat.
Cheese puff, frazzles, anything like
Yeah,
that.
whatever they call them, like the bacon
Yeah.
strips or whatever.
Do you know what's the best thing? I know it's going off topic. My daughter, she's 3.5, and they're all like a face of an animal, and each supermarket does a different
Yeah,
animal. Yeah. uh, Sorry, we'll get back on Gaffr, shall we?
yeah, yeah, yeah. We could get very off track at this rate.
Yeah, we could
Uh,
do. Yeah.
Sepper has asked us, is it a good idea to use both Wells and Conway for the next 3 weeks?
No.
Not for me. I've already expressed my doubts on Conway, and that's why. Wells, sure, go for it. If you want to go double attack, sure, go for it. But in that case, I'd go Wells and Vyman.
Yeah, I agree with that.
FF Thinker has asked us, if you have used away days and park the bus, which boost left is best and in which week? So I'll come to you first. In a vacuum, what would you say to people?
Do you know, I think I would overhaul. I think I would overhaul into picking a good team, not just for double 14, but also 17, 20. I think I'd do that rather than midfield dynamos.
Yeah, I think probably either way, you're playing a boost in 14. Because I think either way, you're overhauling in 14 or you're playing midfield dynamos in 14. I can see the logic behind both of those. I have no issue with either. You might want to overhaul in 15 instead, like you're saying, literally use it at that point to set up for the doubles. But I think those are probably your two best options. And it's just really, it almost just comes down to personal preference at that point and how well you think you'll be set up for particularly 17. Because you can work towards 20 a bit more anyway, in part just because of how many teams double, but how you feel about 17 based on the team you've got. Billy Hadaway has asked us, best Sheffield United defender strategy moving forward, given Ahmed Hodzic's injury and Bogle coming back. So touched on it there. I think the answer is Norrington Davis or Egan, but what do you think on Sheffield United defence?
So I think you're right with the two you said, at which point I think there's better options from other teams. If we then get Bogle back and NL back, then probably go back to them. But I think there's better options at other clubs if you're going over Egan.
I probably wouldn't bother with Egan. I think Norrington Davis is different because I think he's at like 5.6. So I think you're potentially making a saving on other options there, which is where particularly if you're looking to just have a Sheffield United defender, there's a bit more argument there. If you actually want to really benefit from it, then I think you're right in terms of just waiting for the better assets to be back available. Auto Reclose, Darren has asked us, was it apparent that Wilder used up all his boosts and tried to sabotage his rivals on away days?
He did on the away days game week 1, didn't he?
Yeah, he was definitely away days 1. Yeah. That move reeked of someone who was on away days 1. And scored about 60 points. And so needed to sabotage the rest of us. Shebedeme has asked us, is there a point in getting Conway for the double as it seems he is losing his starting spot? Well, he's not losing his starting spot. He's still been starting. The problem is he's coming off at half time. But
he's basically a part-time footballer with Semenyo at this point.
Literally 50% of the time.
Yeah.
So no, I wouldn't be getting him. George FPL has asked, when can we have another Q&A? Jamie absolutely cracked me up. When there's another break, I guess.
We've got World Cup.
Yeah. It tends to work best when there are actually breaks because obviously there's quite a lot of in the season. There's not much free time beyond the pods we have to record in terms of game week reviews to then give you a Q&A as well. But if people really like it and we've had lots of good feedback on it, then we might try and slot the odd extra one in if we can. But there's lots of other commitments as well that we have to work around.
Just getting Jamie to show up is like
that's
amazing.
Half the battle.
He's finished playing cricket now, so
we'll just have to promise him there's food questions every week and he might turn up.
That's it. Just ask questions.
Yeah.
I dread to think what questions we're going to get after his answers the last time, though.
Yeah. Pray for Laura Woods at that dinner party. Petri Annanen has asked us, Best way to use the last boost during game week 13 to 15 is already used away days and part of the bus. We've covered that. Rob Pick asks, in-depth question here. What the fuck was that? This can be applied to Wilder, the game week as a whole, or my dismal Carlton Morris experience. We don't need anything else from me on Chris Wilder and the Middlesbrough. Game week as a whole, I know Rob's annoyed because he didn't hit 100 on his away days, but he did score over 100 in FPL, so he's won somewhere.
To be honest, he got the Carlton Morris experience. He gets booked. He should have had a couple of goals.
He's blamed me and that GIF that I've shared on Twitter multiple times. And to be fair, that's I can't really argue with that. But yeah, if he gets given that penalty, we're having a completely different conversation. Particularly given that he got booked for complaining about not getting the penalty. If he actually gets it, it completely swings. So I'm blaming the ref actually. Shebidabit also asked us, is Brady worth playing for the double?
Yep.
Yeah. If Robbie Brady's going to play, he's always worth playing.
Yeah.
FPL Blindside has asked us, would you replace Vyman with Wells?
Ooh.
I think I would.
Really? I'm not sure I would. I think it's a transfer angle.
I'm worried about Vyman's lack of returns, whereas Wells is actually returning. So that's
yeah, but it's a double.
But
he could get benched for one of the games.
I don't like sideways moves, so that's the flip side of that. I really don't like sort of switching, particularly like forwards from the same team. I really don't like switching between them. So really even if you think Wells is the best option, if you've got Vyman, I'd still just stick with what you've got. If you want to add Wells to Vyman, then sure, go for it.
But I just think I could see it happening. Vyman will play both games, and
score
Wells
like 3.
But even if he only gets one return, Wells could get benched for one of the games. I wouldn't do that.
No, I think in actuality, I probably wouldn't, in part because, like I say, I don't like those sorts of sideways moves. FPL Reactions has asked us 4 questions. He said, who is the best budget keeper, considering the fixtures ahead? Amos.
Or Johansson.
Those are the 2, best Blackburn defenders?
I'm not thrilled about it, but Pickering.
Yeah. I think it has to be at this point.
Yeah.
Best Bristol City defenders? Which one that's actually playing is the cheapest?
I don't know. I like Naismith because he's on set pieces, isn't he?
I like the defence so little that I would say which one starting is the cheapest. Atkinson. He's 4.6. There you go.
What about what's his name? Viner?
He's also 4.6.
I'd go in.
One of them. One of those 2, the cheapest ones.
I know one of them's going to haul.
Yeah.
We've slagged them off, and I know one of them's going to haul.
Yeah. There'll definitely be one of their defenders who has like a 23-point double game week. And are West Brom terrible?
I don't think they're terrible. They're just not good enough in both boxes, as we said.
I think not quite, but they're not good.
Here's a question: who are better, Borough or West Brom?
Oh Jesus!
I think West Brom.
I should have known this question was coming, and I don't know the answer.
I think it's West Brom. I think West Brom had a better manager. They'd easily finish ahead of Middlesbrough.
Yeah, but I think if Borough had a better goal scorer, they'd be top 6 right now.
But they don't.
No. And therein lies the problem. Yeah, probably West Brom, but, I don't like it.
I don't like it either.
FPLB has asked us, is overhauling for game week 14 any merit in it? 11 double game weekers, or is 6 or 7 enough? Will that be enough to keep pace? Oh, I definitely wouldn't have 11 doublers.
I wouldn't even have 6.
No, I thought
Just
6 or
get me
7 was
4.
rich. Like I was like,
I'm going to have 4.
yeah, I think 4 or 5 might be a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong on this, but no, particularly overhauling into, you're gonna have to overhaul out of again. If you overhaul into 11 doublers from what is it, Bristol City, Blackburn,
Preston,
and Wigan. If you overhaul into 11 of them, you're gonna have to overhaul again in the next set of boosts.
I think I'm going to have 4, maybe 5, and they're going to be Amos, Brady, Brereton Diaz, probably a Bristol City striker, and maybe I'll go one more, but I probably won't.
I think the thing for me is, like, if you're overhauling in game week 14, which I think there's a lot of merit to, if you can plausibly include 6 or 7. I think that's the only circumstance under which you should have 6 or 7, is if your plan is to overhaul, include a couple of extra doublers, and then sell them gradually moving forward. But I think you'll be on a par with most people if you have 4.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be worrying too much about loading up on them. And the final question we have is from Andy, FPL Mode, who's asked us, how many 0-0s will Preston get over the whole season? I don't even know how many they've got so far.
They've got 6.
6 in, 11 games?
I'm going to go for... I reckon it'll change and then they won't get a 0-0. I'm going to go for 9.
See, I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to make some, not ridiculous prediction, but on the face of it, it's ridiculous just in terms of probabilities. I'm going to say they have 20 0-0s across the course of the season. It'll be completely wrong, but it's either they're going to have 4 more the rest of the season, or they're going to have loads. It won't be in between.
Keep going. It can't keep going.
No, I don't see how it does. And yeah, that's all the questions. Thank you for sort of persevering with us through to the end. Looking at the clock and realizing that over an hour had gone when we started the questions, I was particularly with the quick turnaround. Apologies for giving you a long pod to listen to.
Don't worry about FBL. Even though I'm actually doing well in that this year.
But I'm more thinking by the time this goes out, people will have less than 48 hours before the next deadline. And we're asking them to spend 1.5 of them listening to us.
No worries.
It's all right. You know, if you want to listen to me go on a whole rant about Chris Wilder, you've got however long it is, which was probably longer than it should have been, of great content of me just ranting about Chris Wilder. And if you don't, then you can just skip past it. But yeah, so we will be back. We'll do the spaces on Thursday. I think the plan for the content going forward will be we'll have our regular sort of big pod at the weekend or occasionally on a Monday, depending on how the game week falls. And then the secondary piece of content will be the spaces on the Thursday, which from this week we will start recording and putting out as a second bit of content. So just to let everyone know, that's how our content will work going forward. So all that's left to say is thank you for listening and goodbye.
Goodbye.